There we go. Now we are recording. So, Jon, thank you so much. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. It is a really exciting webinar that we have planned for you. So, I'm going to dive in. Before we get started, a quick announcement. Please make sure to follow Indiegogo on LinkedIn. We have a lot of exciting events coming up and planned. Our next one coming up is actually on April 2nd with Rain Factory on how to build your high converting campaign page for success. And the next one is with Easy Ship on April 16th to talk about post-campaign shipping and fulfillment. And I always say preparing for success. So without further ado, let's dive into it. It is my pleasure today to welcome our guest, Jon Lang, one of the founders of storyboxCREATIVE. storyboxCREATIVE is an international award-winning story agency specializing in scaling global brands. With a deep commitment to excellence, Jon and Rachel unfortunately was not able to join us, have leveraged innovative strategies and visionary leadership to found and lead marketing teams and content creators that drive global brands to new heights, shatter records, and have raised hundreds of millions of dollars for their clients. As filmmakers and storytellers, Jon and Rachel use compelling imagery to draw their audiences in and connect people to stories that matter. It is their mission to tell authentic stories that move people. Jon, I actually would like to give you a few minutes to introduce yourself in your own words, and then we will jump into the next phase of the webinar and dive into what you've prepared.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited and this is an exciting year and there's a lot coming up, I feel like. So this is, and last year was a good year too. And I think we're just building on that momentum. I started off in the action sports industry, actually. I was obsessed with skiing and didn't really want to go to college, but I knew I needed to go to college. So I went and got a tourism degree, traveled the world skiing, ran ski events, and somehow just kind of kept, if it was cool, I wanted to do it. Like just wanted to gravitate towards things that made me excited and were wild and global. And so actually went from being an events coordinator to a free ski judge, and then traveled the world judging ski events and then training judges to judge. And that got me really close to some pretty big brands. And our agency was sponsored by some of the biggest brands, Target, Red Bull, Nike. And so I got to work closely with a lot of brands and how they did marketing. That was really informational and insightful. And so as I wanted to step away from action sports and events, I really wanted to be a filmmaker. And I always loved the marketing that we were doing. Events is marketing. And I was starting to work on the video side with ESPN and Comcast and doing actually like going from being a judge to then shooting stuff and content creation. And so moved in, got a second degree, went back to school, quickly got a job at Intel, started working at the agency inside, and really saw things from a totally different scale. And that was just really insightful. 5 years there, and we were Ad Age's Internal Agency of the Year. I think it was 2016. And then that just led to more things, like we won Cannes Lions, won all these awards. And then we launched Storybox. So we wanted to help people and do it our way. Rachel was there, freelancing with us. And so we're like, let's just start this ourselves and see where it goes. And then we weren't looking for crowdfunding. It found us. And that was really cool. And so you'll hear some stories here in a bit of how that moved down the chain, but that's kind of our backgrounds, how we got into this. And we just love helping people, and we love the products that people make. And I'm always blown away with just the new innovative products coming out. And so it's fun to be a part of that.
And there's also so many new products coming, and you get to interact with people also from all over the world. And I find that founders are just so passionate and they want to share their stories. So there's a really exciting, I think, energy around crowdfunding and creating those videos too.
Yeah, one tidbit on that, and this is props to people watching this video. We've worked with very large corporations, and sometimes the vision of the company, like, it disappears by the time it gets way down the chain, and the budgets are so big, and that can be nice. But at the same time, I've seen companies spend $250,000 on a campaign and then just literally hit delete when it was done, because but people weren't involved enough to make sure so it just kind of like money gets thrown away sometimes.
Mhm.
And we got paid to work on projects, but like we don't like that. Like, I want to see things go the distance. So it's awesome working with founders who are super passionate and watching their product actually go.
And it's the first step. I mean, this video is usually one of those first pieces of content that these founders are creating. And so it's also must be so rewarding for you.
Yeah, it's cool.
Awesome. You ready to get into it?
Let's do it.
All right. I think, John, you're up first. I think you got a question.
Yeah, so we know from our side, I have some stats I can share in a second, but we know how important video is. How do you, from you being the platform, how do you see it helping with the campaign or being a part of that ecosystem?
No, it's an awesome question. Look, Indiegogo recommends that every individual that is launching a crowdfunding campaign have a video, because campaigns that include a video tend to raise 114% more than those that do not have a video. But the video also, there's so many benefits to having it. It is also, besides the benefits that exist for the video for the crowdfunding campaign itself, this is an asset that will be able to live within your content library for up to 4 years. It is something that you can use and will stay on YouTube, and it can only benefit you. So it is worth the investment. From Indiegogo's side, the video it adds trust and credibility to the campaign. It has an educational component to allow people to actually get to feel the brand, the energy, see the product working. And also it allows backers to engage with you as the company for the first time, because we also know that everyone wants to watch video. And so the video is one of the most important pieces to your crowdfunding campaign. And I think, John, you've got some interesting stats that you can add to that as well. And I'd love to hear you.
Let me hit you all with some stats in the face. Let's see if I can share this. That way it gets recorded. And we can share this out as well. But did it? Yep. So you're seeing video content marketing.
Yep.
Okay. Nope, don't want to share it. I just want to go through it.
Yep.
So videos create 95% retention of a message versus 10% if read via text. That should hit pretty hard with you. If you're creative, if you're trying to tell a story about your product, that's gnarly. 85% of customers are more likely to make a purchase if they've seen a video about it. Videos are shared 12 times more online than text. That's insane.
So the shareability of a video can actually help your campaign get more visibility.
Yeah, there's not many viral texts in the world.
Yeah.
But there are viral videos. So 90% of consumers watch content on their phones or tablets. So that helps you kind of frame how, and we'll get into that in a little bit, of like how you frame your video to make sure that it's successful for mobile. And SEO, sites with video content are 53 times more likely to appear on a first page of search. So if your web developer is telling you, I'm going to cut the video, it's slowing your time down, you don't need to cut the video. You need to learn how to streamline the video to play fast, because you don't want to lose that statistic over if they don't know how to do it, call us. So that's what I'm saying. It's important to have the video. So I'll cut that for a second, but it's really critical that you have a video. And people ask, especially like the Eureka Park area, they're dealing with so many expensive parts of starting their company. So video can be the first thing they decide to not do. And I get that. But the stats say otherwise. So anyways, yeah, I just kind of sets the stage for why this talk matters.
I think a lot of people know, and I think almost everyone on here probably has social media. So John, I know that we've got a lot of questions laid out. I'm going to jump around a little bit, or do you want me to go? Yeah, cool. Yeah. So before we get into what it takes to make the video, before we get into the tips and tricks and the secret sauce and all of that jazz, I would love to hear, you shared why video is so critical to a campaign success. Can you share the story behind, actually you did share the story behind storyboxCREATIVE a little bit, but can you share the secret behind your record-breaking $8 million crowdfunding campaign that you did? And talk about the name of the campaign and everything else a little bit.
Sure. For anyone who's not familiar, that was Snapmaker 2.0. And they came to us and they wanted to raise their first one did, I think it was 2.7 million, and they were asking for 4 million, which it's funny, you ask around in the industry and people are like, oh my gosh, like that's ridiculous for someone to ask for that. For us, we looked at what they're doing and we said, okay, let's just put it through our system. So our system is, and this is, probably the most direct answer of this is we start from scratch. We do look at what people have done in the past. We do not worry about what your competitors are doing. And most of our clients are sending us constant videos. Oh, our competitor just launched this. They just did this. And I'm like, cool. That's not what we're doing for you. And it gets people pretty bent out of shape, and rightfully so. So one thing we like to look at is we try to be, there's thermostats and there's thermometers. People who are thermostats or agencies or thermostats, they read the room. They are always worried about what everyone's thinking about, probably much more politically stressed out than us. And they are just kind of like tense all the time because they're constantly adjusting their temperature for what the room is doing. We're thermostats. We set the temperature, we create culture, we tell people what we're doing, we help create branding. You can't create branding if you're trying to figure out what all the competitors are doing, because then you're just copying. So it's a bold move, but that's how we operate. So again, we're never really worried about our competitors who do similar things than us or also hold cameras. We're not
Mhm,
worried about that. So we're always looking at how can we set the entire industry with your product? Like
mhm,
what you do where no one's going to think of anything else. It's like with Apple, they're not worried about what everyone else is doing. Like watch the movies about them, read the books. They're not they're not concerned trying to keep up with, well, the other computer companies are doing this. Like, we don't care. We're not a computer company. We're a lifestyle company. And we make your life better. And now everyone's chasing them all the time. So that's why we start from scratch. We'll create something completely new. So with Snapmaker, the biggest thing that they were actually missing was they're only speaking to less than half of their actual audience, this massive email list. And they weren't targeting their whole list. So we just wrote a story. It's not like, oh, but we wrote a story that literally fit their whole audience, and they maximized what they could do with it. And their product was a good product and they had innovated on it. It was a new product. It was better, but the story really mattered. And then so they asked for 4 million, we gave them 7.8. In the same time, we helped another client raise 126 million, literally same quarter. And so we had two really big successes that year. So we weren't like, yes, we were celebrating, we were so excited for them, but for us, that's just what we plan to do and what we aim to do for our clients. And the other client, they were hoping to raise 20 million, and we knew that they could do better because it was an amazing product.
No, that's incredible. And I think this is a fantastic segue, by the way, to now diving into what it takes to get those videos, what it takes, like where do you actually start, And so I want to ask you a follow-up question. How do you approach creating a compelling video narrative for products that have never hit the market, for crowdfunding and Indiegogo? These are new products. These are completely new brands that no one has ever heard of. And so you are starting from the very beginning, and you have to build that up. And so where do you look? How do you start building that compelling story? What are you actually doing?
Yeah. So for us, we hear this is kind of tethered. People will say, oh, if you're a marketing agency, you can only work with like a niche industry. It's so not true. You can either sell products or you can't. And it's the same thing with storytelling. You see great filmmakers. They can tell sports stories. They can tell drama stories. They can tell comedies. That's why I love Ron Howard. He literally makes one of my favorite comedies and most of my favorite dramas, and they're not all sports stories. And so what the great creators do is they become that person. They become that character. They become that audience. So we do have a filmmaking side where we write scripts and we're working on character development, and it totally plays into our marketing. So something that hasn't hit the market yet, I think that's the best thing to work with. I've done my Clifton Strengths, which is a great, I recommend it to anyone. It tells you what you're good at and what you suck at. And it helps you focus on your top five. And my number one strength is futuristic. And so the number one thing, and I'm like, I run a company that is futuristic, helping people be futuristic. Go figure. That, and so you have to see that product and how it's going to affect people, but also you have to see those people and how they're going to talk about it, and you have to think like them.
And so when you're working with these founders, do you work with them with the audience? Do you typically find that a lot of founders really deeply know who their audience is, or do you actually even need to take a step back to do a lot of audience and market research? I'd love to understand more about that a little bit.
Yeah, some people have a pretty good beat on it,
Mhm.
and that's why they created this product, because maybe they were the audience. Those are great to work with. Some people, they just have some lightning hit them, and they have this idea, and you're like, that's a pretty good idea. Like, and this is how we can do it. So there are times where people come to us and their audience is so incorrect. And look, when you're a thermostat, you can get in fights with your clients sometimes. We always tell our clients, look, does Rocky go to Mick and say, hey, I want you to be super easy on me? Don't cuss me out. Or I don't cuss people out, but don't, spit on me when you're talking to me loudly. Like, just make my boxing career easy. No, Mick's job is to turn into a champion. And that's why Mick walked away from so many times,
Yeah.
what it takes to create. It was literally killing him in the stories. It was killing his family. And so, killed his friend. So anyways, I am the Mick to you becoming a champion. And that doesn't mean I'm going to agree with you all
Mhm.
the time. There are times I'm totally going to be in sync with you, and we'd like to be in sync with our clients. Some people are not a good fit for us, and we do not work with them.
Mhm.
But you you do have to understand your audience. And if you're going to be a CEO, like if there's founders on this call, like, you are going to have to have a gut and stick to it. But there are times you are going to be wrong. And
Mhm.
someone who's an expert in that field, try to listen to them, but you're also going to have to discern if they're blowing smoke, and just trying to get some cash out of you. So that's tough as an entrepreneur. We work our best. We want to see people succeed. And really, this is more of like our innovation side of our business. So we want crowdfunders to then become very heavily stabilized so they can do recurring marketing. So our goal is not to just take a check and then whatever. Like, we need you to be successful because it's very expensive to get new clients. So, retention is very important for all businesses. Same for you. You want to retain your clients. You don't want to be buying new customers all the time.
And so what's that, piece of advice then that you have for founders when they're starting to craft that narrative for their product and maybe working with you or doing it on their own? What's that, in like two sentences, what's that piece of advice you have on where to get started when starting to craft the narrative to build the script?
You need to know your audience as well as you know your children,
Hmm.
or your family members. If you don't have kids, like, you need to know your audience inside and out. Like, you need to live and breathe how they think. And I think that will help you make all the decisions you need to make down the line,
Hmm.
where other things, you might have other people join the team. And if their ideas don't align with what your customer wants, that does not happen.
Yep.
Like, you can't do things to please people because you have to please your customer.
Absolutely. And and so what would you say after crafting that, narrative and, starting to build the script, living and breathing the audience, what's the most common mistake that you see in crowdfunding videos and how can it be avoided? Like, what would you say is the number one mistake you see and how can you avoid it?
Yep. So overemphasizing tech specs, or having no tech specs and just purely doing story. So to step back, 95% of all purchases are emotion. We look at the tech specs because I already want it. I already want that. I already want a Cybertruck. That's why I'm on a list for it. Now I'm checking all the tech specs all the time to make sure I'm not making a dumb decision. I'm running it by my wife. I'm telling her, well, it's the same size as this. So tech specs are critical. But what we see, especially startup founders, they want to jam every tech spec into that video.
Mhm.
And it's like we were talking about a little bit earlier. I'm not trying to bounce around too much, but this is all tethered. The first 15 seconds is super critical. If you look at the best people in the world, best companies doing the best marketing, Super
Mhm.
Bowl ads, YouTube ads, Hulu ads, Disney Plus ads now, they're doing it in 15 seconds.
Yep.
So you have to be able to reduce it down, or at least boil down the most important things to that first 15 seconds.
Mhm.
And it's not going to be all your tech specs. Your tech specs are going to go on the landing page in GIFs, in images. They're going to go look at, Amazon purchases. The most important things are right here. It's all an experience. And then down below, you can get into the weeds of the weight of it, the size of it. So that is what we see people get wrong the most, is they just obsess over 30 tech specs.
Mhm.
Your audience will not be able to remember more than two things from your video. Three maximum, but it's more like one or two.
That's interesting. And so you're saying, so the first 15 seconds are the most critical of the video, and people are really only going to remember two things from the video that they watch.
Yeah, but you're paying for all these other things. So that's why we're telling people just focus on what is going to make them say, I can't live another day without this product. I
Okay.
have to have this product. And you have to do that quickly, effectively.
Mhm.
But remember, it's, we're not doing this with a chop axe. We're doing this with emotion, with music, with beauty.
Mhm.
Um, we're doing this in a way that makes them feel, remember, you got to know your audience
Yeah.
incredibly well. Doing it in a way that they, if they just had a super stressful day, or they're on their lunch break, they're scrolling through, all of a sudden this is them. Like they see this and they're like, oh my gosh, this is me. I feel peace.
So, and I think this is a really interesting follow-up question then. So, you know, in the age of social media, I mean, I think we're deep into the age of social media and short attention spans, and the attention spans are getting even shorter. How do you capture and retain, a backer's interest in a crowdfunding video? And in that as well, is there an ideal length for a video? Like, is there a recommended ideal length? And how do you keep their attention?
Yeah, we're seeing it. It's coming way down. And so think about when crowdfunding first existed, you could have a webcam, you could talk for 6 minutes, and things would sell, things would fund. Now it's becoming a very commercialized space because that's just the experience people want anyways. And so you tether it to what is the biggest and best. The biggest and best Super Bowl ads. And it's stuff you're seeing. Those are 30, every once in a while you'll get a 60-second spot. It's very rare. They're
Yeah.
50 to 30 seconds. And so we're recommending to people 60 to 90 seconds for
Yeah.
your launch, sometimes 2 minutes. But we would rather you put your budget to the best 60 seconds you could put your foot towards,
Mhm.
instead of just cramming every feature and every angle in. It won't actually help you.
So, can you talk me through, and we'll just try to keep it short. Can you
Sure.
talk through what goes into making a video? Because a lot of people might think, oh, I can write something on Chat GPT, maybe I'll edit it, I'll film it on my phone. Can you talk through, like, big picture, what goes into making a video, and also the timeline to making a video, from the time that you sign a contract to the time that you get a produced video? What's the expectation?
Yeah, so those are all great questions. And I definitely wanted to make sure we touch on AI at the end because it's everyone's wondering about it. So the total timeline, you should be looking at 8 to 10 weeks
Yep.
for your video, once you sign a contract, delivery. Now things can change and sometimes that gets pushed back, but it should be 8 to 10 weeks. Uh, so we break our budgets down in quarters. Essentially, it's you've got your pre-production, and they're almost always identical. Pre-production, physical production, post-production, and then the actual expenses, gear, travel, locations,
And
all that.
and don't get into specific numbers. I just want to hear, but I
That's
just, yeah, I just want to get into kind of like those kinds of mindset and then the timeline. So it's good.
Yeah, and so people could say, "Oh, I'll do all the posts myself, or I'll do all the pre myself." And honestly, you might have to. If you're getting scrappy and you've got to just get, to the next iteration, there's no
Mhm.
shame in that at all. And so but physical production, that's, it usually accounts for a quarter to a third of a total budget. And so but there's again, it's not always just about that. Pre-production can go on for 4 weeks to make sure your brand is being voiced correctly. Your video is, and you might, if you're in this space, you're probably doing one video every 2 to 3 years. This one video is going to live for 3 years. It's the voice, it's the talking, living, breathing version of your brand.
Mhm.
So I'm not trying to put a bunch of pressure on you, but it puts a bunch of pressure on us, but we're good with it. But make sure you really heavily consider how you tell that.
And so the video, and you know what, I have to tell an anecdote as well. So my
Yeah.
background before I joined Indiegogo, I actually was a crowdfunding consultant and project manager and launched 5 campaigns. And I remember in 2017, we had a video, we were getting ready for the day of the shoot, and we had written the script. We had felt good about it. And 48 hours before we went to shoot, we showed the script to somebody else, and we realized that there maybe were some nuances in the script that were not aligned with the brand and not the brand voice and not what we wanted to convey. And we ended up having to completely rewrite the script. Now, we were fortunate that the video production company that we were working with was able to, go back and do that. And that's not something that I would recommend because we did not sleep for 48 hours. But it goes to show you, with the production, with the script, you can write the script 12, 15 times. You can keep rewriting it. But once you shoot it, you're done. It's one, you're shooting it, you're doing it, and that's it. You get those actors in that location one day. And it is a big expense that you have to really think about. And so what I had always advised, and I'm sure you would say the same, is to not put pressure on the script and allow yourself some time to also sit with it and to share with people and to get outside opinion, because you live and know the brand, but to see that other people who have never heard of your brand actually resonate or understand or get the messaging or get those 2 takeaways. Would you agree?
Yeah, I really appreciate how you phrased all that, because where we see problems, another issue we have is if we do our part, but then we can tell the founder or whoever we're working with, they're just too busy and they don't give it the time and attention, it'll show up right the day before a shoot. Oh, we can't do that. I'm like, you had this for 4 weeks and you're just telling us now.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, you need time in all of our, like, we have a timeline that we give our clients, and like we have agencies that we're partnered with, crowdfunding agencies. And so we have timelines for them, and it gives breathing room for the clients to really let that soak in, then have an iteration, and then have a final. And still there's like another day that they can have it soak in, because it sucks to have to do a rewrite on, you know what I mean? Like we've all been there
Yeah.
in the space.
Well,
Brutal.
I hope that the individuals joining us today have not been there and they don't
Sure.
go.
Yeah.
We're
Yeah.
advising them not to. But yeah, I
Yeah.
think, having that space, once you get ready to go to crowdfunding, you get so excited. And there's a lot of things that you can change, email and social, but video, as we've said, it has such a long shelf life, and you only do it once, and you can only do it once right. Because, well, here's a follow-up question. How much can you fix in post-production?
So much less than people think. Um, so there's movies, I won't name any specifics. There was a movie that came out and they couldn't make a decision on the outfits for the heroes. So they just did it all in post, and it cost like $100 million. Yeah,
Well,
it's
let's talk
possible.
about crowdfunding
No,
videos.
I know, but to paint the scale, it's possible with
Yeah.
money.
Yeah.
And in this space, you have to be smart with your money. Even if you have some money, probably
Yeah.
should go somewhere else. So that's why we have to get it right before we even hit a camera, or go, so it's, you can fix something. We dealt with this 2 weeks ago on a shoot in New York. Someone was asking, oh, can we just fix that in post? And I'm like, yeah, if you were to waste a ton of money, let's just fix it now,
Yeah.
right here. It took 10 more minutes to redo something, got it, it's done, nothing has to happen in post.
This is an awesome follow-up question, I think, to this conversation. So, for creators that have a tight budget, and again, we didn't talk numbers, and we're going to talk some numbers maybe a little bit. just about, kind of, we'll get there. But for creators who have a tight budget, what are the key elements of a successful crowdfunding video that they should focus on? Because if you have a tight budget, where should they focus and really invest?
Yeah. It's really important to focus on authenticity,
Mhm.
especially with, millennials and Gen Z. They both generations really value authenticity. It's so important. So you can focus on that for free. That's something you can really think about. And I think I mean, that to me is probably it's the biggest one.
Is there something more? I would even say, so I think that's killer and a really important thing. And I think that everyone, it doesn't matter the budget, should focus on authenticity, because I think in today's day and age, we're all a bit tired of being oversold to. And so to really be able to resonate, is there an area that you would focus in on in the either pre-production or production or post-production with a tight budget? Like if somebody could only invest maybe in one of those three, or if they could invest in all? Is it the script or is it the shooting? Like where should they really hone in on with their budget?
Yeah, with us, like we really care about all four of those phases. Because it's not just pre-production and post, it's the equipment you use and the location quality. So for people who just literally don't have a budget, you can you can work on the pre-production yourself.
Yep.
Like anyone can teach themselves filmmaking. It is hard. I'm not saying it's easy. It's a lot of work. And let's be honest, if you're an entrepreneur, you can only do that for so long. Eventually, you're going to have to delegate things so you can continue to grow your business. But you will probably have to do things yourself.
Mhm.
Pre-production is something you could probably take on yourself. Physical production, there are ways that you can not cut corners, but all filmmaking is cutting corners. All filmmaking.
Yeah.
So it's don't look at it as a bad way. It's like I mean, you're literally facing one angle. The rest of it's all a gong show. You don't want to show that. So really be thoughtful about how you spend your money. Maybe go watch The Room or the new movie about The Room and how wrong that guy did everything. It might teach you like, oh my gosh, there's so many smarter ways to do this.
Yeah.
Watching YouTube videos. Honestly, when I was first starting out, I watched so much on YouTube. You
Mhm.
can learn anything on YouTube. So if you feel like you need to jump in and like do some of the sweat equity yourself,
Mhm.
jump on YouTube. Like it's in the long run, it's not going to replace what we do. However, if you're getting scrappy and you're starting, you might have to.
And I mean, we talked about the video script and how little can actually be done in post production. Do you think that's something that people should hire out or do themselves? And also, actually, with a follow up question to that, in crowdfunding videos, there used to be a style to do interview style with the founders. What's your take on that?
Don't do it.
Yeah,
Don't do it.
it doesn't have the longevity, does it?
No, we've done that with clients and we weren't really like obsessed with the idea. Because I used to do a ton of that in Intel,
Yeah.
with like people becoming fellows and they're kind of graduating to retirement and they're just heroes and legends. That's great.
Yeah.
But if a CEO moves on, which I've seen happen, they can't use that anymore. And
Right.
it does happen. And so also, when's the last time you saw the founder or the president of Coca-Cola talking about their product? They let actors
Yeah.
act the product.
Yeah.
So what are the highest up doing? Do what they do. Like you'll only see VPs and high level people. And sometimes I'm just gonna be honest, sometimes it's an ego thing.
Yeah.
People really want to be the face of it. Build that into your brand. Why did you create this product? Create that in a way that you never have to say anything about it and people get it.
Yeah.
Um, or go do TED Talks or do stuff like this.
Yeah.
That's when you kind of get to stroke your ego a little bit. And there are ways to do that.
And so, good follow-up question. What is the, okay, so I want to ask a question and I want to preface with saying there is a number within the video world, and it's usually kind of the above and below $20,000 mark for crowdfunding videos. And we can share some more information about why that's sort of the number, and I'll include that in my follow-up email. What's a different approach to creating videos for campaigners with budgets less than 20,000 and over 20,000? And then I just want to preface and say, we'll ask two more questions here, and then we're going to move to Q&A because I see a lot of people asking
Okay.
questions. I'm really excited. So I would love for you to answer this, and I'll ask you another question.
Yeah. So if you're below, I'm just going to be transparent. You got to figure out things you can do yourself. I think one of Storybox's strengths is pre-production. I mean, it's a superpower for us. So if you do it yourself, you're not accessing our superpower, but it is something that you can DIY yourself in your own way. I'm not going to say you're going to do it the same as us because we're obsessed with it. We won awards for it, but that is something you might have to do yourself. Now, when you get over the 20K mark, that's when you can start paying for like very, very, very saturated experience pre-production. And it does make a difference. So I'm not, but again, I do get it. If you're a startup, I'm not shaming anybody. Make the decisions that help your company grow. But once you do grow, make sure that you can start putting money into the things that matter, like ad spend, good quality pre-production, good brand. You make sure your branding's tuned up. All those things, you're gonna have to keep spending for it. So yeah. So and then that leads into, if you're above that, now you get to pay for the things that are gonna actually like really connect with your audience. And that's it'll lead into the budget builder, but that's why we built it. So people can see where they can put money towards.
I love it. And, when I had worked with campaigns in the past, one of the things that we were always conscientious of was the fact that this was a long-term investment and something that we were going to use for 3 to 4, 5 years. One of the campaigns, they're still using it. Now, they're not necessarily using the entire video. The way that we filmed the video was that we would be able to cut it, I call it splice and dice, and use it for ads that are combined with future productions that you're going to do. And so is there a way that you can craft and create a video in advance in order to pull multiple 15 seconds out, or to cut it and make more ads or social posts or reels and gifs for the page? And I'd love to hear your take on that.
That's the exact conversation we're in right now with a client. They are leaning towards like a 35K package, kind of that range.
Mhm.
What they need is more assets after that. And
Yep.
when you get into the weeds of producing and directing and getting talent and all that locations, if you're going to need more runway past that, or just a deeper runway,
Mhm.
um, it makes sense to go to like a 45K package, because now you're getting all the extra assets. You're getting all this other stuff. So I just, one of the actors that worked with us in New York, I came home, saw her on a Macy's ad. That was epic. That was a huge win for us. But she literally was in one shot. So we
Mhm.
had her most of the day doing a lot of stuff. She was in one shot for a Macy's ad. I guarantee they didn't just shoot one shot. They shot her in a bunch of different angles. That's going to be on print. That's going to be on coupons. That's going to be on social. So we always shoot things for further life because we're trying to help you. And so a lot of that's built into our packages to make sure, and the bigger it gets, just the more you can give people.
Absolutely. But I think there's also a cost-effective way, just thinking about how you're shooting in advance, the way that you build the script when you're thinking about the way that you're also filming it as well. I think, is there a way that you can, build it, not just getting all the assets from you, but when I have the video in 2 years down the line, I still need to cut it up and use maybe the text specs, or maybe an action shot, or like a beauty shot. So, that's a question.
Yeah, so it can be, so if you ever feel like someone's pushing you to do multiple scenes, a big reason for that is because if you're going to use this for a long time,
Mhm.
you don't want the content to get stale. You're going to want like multiple venues,
Yeah.
multiple angles. So that's why it makes sense. It might not make sense up front, and sometimes it's not important enough to actually spend on that.
Mhm.
Especially like if you're first starting or it's your first video, but think about, man, I'm gonna need some real longevity out of this. We want you to milk the daylights out of this. It is important, and it's intended that you do. So yeah, the script should set that up.
And I also, so one piece of advice also, like one, I think, insider tip is also always bring insider tips, is to bring I like to recommend to bring a photographer to the set to capture behind the scenes, because your backers, as you're creating this crowdfunding video, they want to be part of the journey and experience. And so by having those behind the scene shots, they get to actually see what's going on and see you not only building the product, but also building the project and get ready and excited for the launch. That's part of the community building. But also you have a photographer there that's taking photos of the actors on the set with the product, so that those assets also match the video. So when you're using those photos on the campaign page, they align and they're speaking in the same graphic language. And I think that's also really critical. You can also have somebody, taking extra photos and videos on their phone, but I always recommend doing both, so that you have UGC style, which means user generated style kind of content, and a photographer. I'd love to hear your
Yeah,
take.
I love that. Thank you for bringing that up. So that is huge. Not even just in this space, in bigger spaces. We're doing an event next week, because we do events too. Doing an event in Silicon Valley, and we have a photographer, we have video. We're managing the booth for them, but there are a lot of people at the event. But just remember, not everyone can make it, and a lot of those people are going to be wanting to see what it looked like on social, maybe somewhere across the world. And so that's why getting some coverage of it in that regard, especially the set, it's huge. If you can't pay a full photographer, have someone there, or have somebody take some iPhone photos,
Yeah,
at the least. So I think it's really important.
I love it.
Yeah, yeah.
So are you ready to, I'm going to check. I think we are at the Q&A time. Are you ready, John? We're going to keep them quick. All right.
Sure,
Because
yeah.
we have people asking. So everyone who is on the call, I'm going to start calling out the questions. So you ready for the first question?
Yes.
Cool. Do you benefit more from a large asset 2-minute video, or a smaller or several smaller assets 15 to 30-second videos for crowdfunding? I want to hear your take, and then I'm going to follow up on it.
Is that like Storybox, like my company, or the
No,
product?
this is all general crowdfunding. Like for a crowdfunding, do you think that an individual is going to benefit from a 2-minute video, or
Okay.
investing in several 15 to 30-second? And so I think this kind of follows up on what I was saying of, do your 60 to 90-second video, but script it and film it in a way that you can walk away with several 15 to 30-second cuts.
Yeah, I would say as well. So like when people hear like 250,000 for a video with corporate or higher, some of the projects
No,
we've been,
but here we're talking only crowdfunding, so I would keep it at the 10
it's
to
all
20.
the same. It's all
Okay.
the same. So if you're spending 3 million on a video, you're paying 7 million just to get it into the Super Bowl. And then you're paying, so it's the video is only ever a small chunk of your massive campaign. So if you don't like it, so I always see it the same. So if you're like, oh, I could go from 20 to 40, are you paying for ad spend? Have you talked to an agency to help you place this? Are you doing email marketing? Are you doing all these other things? So yes, I would love it if you spend more money with us. I'm not going to say that don't, but at the same time, do not spend all of your money on any one part of video. So make sure it's spread evenly. I mean, I'm not like trying to shoot myself in the foot. It's just we want you to succeed. And so if going back to your question, if I'll be fast. Sorry, if it's in your budget to do 2 minutes, do
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
But if you need to put that money towards ad spend and other things, focus on what you can afford, and because you're gonna have to afford a lot of things.
Yeah, absolutely. I have another great question, and I want to make sure. So going forward, let's make sure that we're speaking more specifically budget friendly. I'm going
Yeah.
to say to the under 20K for the follow-up
Okay.
questions, because I'm reading a lot of these come in, and so I want to be super conscientious and speak to
Yep.
that role, and like a lot of tips here. So there's a person who asked that, who wrote that they launched a campaign last year completely by themselves, zero budget, no video, text, and it did not go as planned. So how can a person with very low budget compete with other experienced professional creators who might have budget? Like, how would you advise this person to be able to put together a script and a video on their own? So they can't go to an agency. What would you advise?
Sure. I mean, this is why we're talking about doing equity stake videos, and it's not finalized yet because, but we're not, it's tough. It's tough to not spend money and compete with people who are, I'm just gonna be transparent. However, that's literally what YouTube is for. Anything you want to learn, get on YouTube and learn it. You're gonna put a lot of time in, a lot of effort in, but you can learn anything on
Mhm.
YouTube. I mean, anything. So if you can't spend the money, you have to spend time.
Yep. And I think there's also a lot of resources. So do you mind if I jump in and also
Yeah,
elaborate?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I think, where you could invest. I think even with no budget, it's really important to invest in having a script written very well. And then from there, you probably have students in a local theater university or production company that would be willing to do it for almost nothing, maybe pizza, right? So you can find maybe up and coming actors to participate in it as well. And then to your take about filming, I think YouTube is so critical on that front, on camera angle and lighting and making sure that you also get sound. I think sound quality and camera quality are so important. Like if I were to think about it, because you cannot redo those.
Yeah. Let me, Chuck. Yeah, thank you. Students, that's epic. You really only get a little short while to be a startup. People will help you. But if you're a startup 10 years from now, they're going to stop helping you. But you're a startup now. Leverage everything you can. SAG, which is like the biggest actors union, you can pay people literally guild rates $100 a day.
Yep.
And it can be fully union actors. So don't fall into the trap that you got to spend a ton of money. Like just find someone who's going to help you.
Yep.
Also, audio is 50% of video. So that's why we do voiceovers and music. And also, I think it's better for this. But if you do need audio for your project, make sure it's good.
Yeah. Like invest in a microphone or to try to do a video where it's all voiceover and maybe you can get a voiceover like artist from Upwork or something like this.
Yeah, and students can usually rent equipment from their university, and then you won't have to pay for that. But you just got to go find some students. It's possible.
Yeah. And also, for example, I'm using a ring light and I think it, was $25 something, very reasonable. Like I'm using my ring light today to try to make the lighting a little bit better. So there's a lot
Yeah,
of
I've
kinds of
got
add-ons.
two
Yeah.
lights right here, and the webcam. Everything was under $70.
Yeah. But again, it's as we said, it's knowing your audience, like for budget friendly, it's knowing your audience inside and out. It's making sure that those 15 to 20 first seconds of the video are ironclad perfection, having a great and solid script. We're talking about going to YouTube to watch videos on how to film maybe yourself. But again, I do say that if you do have budget, you should invest in a video because that also is going to be used in your social media channels. It's going to be used in your ads. It's going to be used for multiple years. It's a long-term investment. It's not just for the campaign. Yeah, so I think that's really important. I've got another question here. Does the rise convergence of short form social like TikTok Reels impact the space at all? An authentic short video on your phone seems to have power today that it never has. Is this true for crowdfunding? It's a good question.
Yeah, that is a good question. Yeah, you definitely need to leverage social, and that's why we plan things to fit into like a social plan as well. As far as the actual launch, that might be more of a Sid question, because I think there's a huge importance to use a launch platform when you're launching,
Mhm.
even when you're validating. I mean, massive companies are using Indiegogo right now, and it's awesome to see because I've seen Intel and other companies just blow money on studies that
Logitech.
didn't.
Logitech is
Yeah,
launching on Indiegogo. Yeah.
love my Logitech right here. Yes, and so it's guys, it's not just people just starting out. Some of the biggest companies in the world are using this platform to validate products.
Yeah.
Social, it's a part of it. Do not hang your hat on any one thing, but I would say that's maybe a part of your mix, not your only mix.
It's part of the marketing mix, and having the video itself on the crowdfunding page, you have to understand that the majority of the people and backers that are coming to your crowdfunding page will watch the video and then they're going to decide if they want to scroll or not, which is why it's so critical to have that compelling video. As we said, attention spans are short. Keep it 90 seconds, 2 minutes at the most. But as you said about short form content, you're going to have your social media platforms that are also supporting it, and you can take pieces of your crowdfunding video and put them in TikTok. You can cut them up short as well, and then make those, TikToks and reels and everything, and YouTube shorts. The other thing I want to say, and you said it as well about SEO, Jon, was that YouTube is the second largest search engine platform. So you're not just uploading your video to Indiegogo, you're also uploading it to YouTube, and you have longevity there, and you're building that traction in your brand over time. So,
No, that's
um,
critical. Yeah.
yeah. So I have another question. This is a fun one. How important is it to have a physical item to display, especially if your products are hosting virtual poetry events or publishing events? So I actually had a few questions on this, and I think it's important to bring up. We had a few people join this webinar who are from the creative space, who are either doing virtual poetry events, getting funding for films themselves, for their upcoming films, and also for books and a few others. So, for that creative space, for individuals who don't necessarily have a physical product, what advice do you have for them for their crowdfunding video?
So everything's a story. So people don't need to see a physical thing to experience something. Think about sauce. It's huge here in Utah where I'm based. Software as a service. It's it's pretty hard to see that tangibly, yet it's a massive industry. And so that's why we don't focus. We do like to show the product, especially in this, because people don't like to see something new. But if your product isn't, if it isn't a product, doesn't mean you're not going to succeed. You just have to talk about it really well and make people feel like they want that. So if you're like this, I encourage you, search SaaS marketing or products and see what they're doing. They have, I mean, everything they do is code, and there's nothing physical or tangible. Sometimes it's a website, sometimes it's not. And so, same with streaming services or financial services. Yeah, there's banks, but a lot of fintech is doing real well, and there's nothing physical. Sometimes there's an app, sometimes there's not. So think about things that aren't physical and try to see how they're doing.
I love that. All right, next question for you. Jon, can you stay on a little bit more? It seems
Yeah.
like we've got a bunch of questions, and it seems like people are fired up, and I love it.
Let's send it.
Yes. All right. Here's the first AI question.
Let's get it. Come on.
What is your take on leveraging AI, open AI, for helping outline the script?
Sure. Something I'm seeing AI do very well is structure, and currently still not seeing it do actual content creation. I mean, so I talk to ChatGPT more than I talk to my business partner. So it's like email, phones, computers. People get weirded out by it until they realize how like embedded it is into society. So don't be afraid of it, but think about how you could help it, how it can help you leverage maybe something you're not good at, and maybe it's structure. I was asking it last night, help me figure out tasks that I can delegate. Here's my personality type. And it just went on a shred.
Mhm.
And I'm like, oh my gosh, those are the things I hate doing. I
Yeah.
don't like doing any of those tasks. And so think about it that way. You could use the photo, generative
Well,
AI.
just for the script, to get the outline of
Yeah,
the script, what's your take on, how do you prompt it? How do you use it? How do you make sure that it's not generic and stale?
yeah. I think one way that if you're going to use AI, be creative. Don't make AI be the creative. You
Mhm.
have to be. So ask it questions. Take something like for fact, and then ask it questions about that
Mhm.
and see if it gets it right or if it gets it wrong.
Mhm.
That'll give you a temperature of whether it's doing a good job or not.
Mhm.
And then even take a script of something that you love. Maybe it's an old commercial you love. Have it break that script down. Chances are it can figure it out, or it can take the VO and it can break it down.
Mhm.
Um, And then again, ask it questions. It's a computer. It's doing a job that you're telling it to do.
Mm.
Um, don't don't think it's just going to fix your problems. It's like think of it like a hammer.
Yeah.
You have to make the hammer work for you. You
Yeah.
can't just be like, when are you going to start hammering nails?
Yeah.
Uh, but hammers are incredible.
Yeah.
So just make sure you're asking it questions and you're not believing every single thing you read on it.
Absolutely. I think this is gonna date me, but in the 1990s, when I was in middle school and we were taking typing class on computers with dial-up internet, I had a computer teacher, and I will never forget that he used to tell us the computer is only as smart as you are. And so it's
Yes.
exactly as what you're saying is it's only as smart as the prompts and the questions that you give it. And it's important not to just take it at face value. And I think that if you start searching how to build prompts and also kind of educate it, then and you can build on it as well.
Cameras are the same thing.
Yeah.
We tell people this. We have a $50,000 camera setup. Most people don't in this space, and they're probably charging the same. But that's like a plug for us. But at the same time, like, you can have the nicest camera in the world, and if you don't light it correctly and
Yep.
you don't have a beautiful location, it might look like crap. So it's a great tool, but you do have to know how to use it, and
Mhm.
you have to put it in the right environment. So think of it that way.
I love it. All right, ready for the next question? I think this might be one that I might answer first, and then it'll be good for you. So there's an individual who raised just under 20,000 on Indiegogo in 2021. They're currently looking to raise a large amount going into this year. And they asked, what is the success rate for a repeat crowdfunding campaign and any tips for being successful the second time around?
I want
So
to hear your response.
so I don't have the exact stats, but I will be happy again to follow up with you on those stats. And there is a lot of success for repeat campaigners. And the reason for that is that you've already built an audience, even if it is not as large as you may have thought it would be in the first round, but you still have that base community. You also have trust and credibility because it's your second campaign and people saw that you did a first campaign. And so you're actually building on that campaign, which will give you inevitable success going into it. Tips for being successful the second time around: incredible show-stopping video, following the tips for your crowdfunding video that we talked about today. That's number one. Behind the scenes, great assets from the video shoot, being really conscientious about your assets, the storytelling, making sure that you're telling your story and your narrative to the audience, that it resonates and makes them connect to it on an emotional level, and building your community before you launch. Having a big engaged community before you launched is one of the biggest pieces of advice that we have. And I always recommend, and this is not just posting to social, but it's being engaged and it's building this email list. And it's not just about building an email list and letting it go cold. It's about building that community and engaging with them through that process and getting them excited. And so that's my biggest piece of advice. Follow up.
Yeah, it's invest everything you can back into your business until your business is investing in you. I've been an entrepreneur for the last 10 years, and there are times it is so brutal and I cry and I want to run and hide. And then there's other times it's like, this is the greatest. So um, if you can put every dime of that back into your next, campaign, I
Mm-hmm.
would. I know you got to live, so it's hard being an entrepreneur. There's no like real, this is the way to do it. Everyone just does it different ways. But put as much as you can into that. That's my honest, candid feedback.
I love it. All right, so we actually have two questions that are both kind of related to film. So I'm going to bunch them together. We have a lot of individuals from the film space, which is great. So Indiegogo is a platform not just for tech products or new innovation products, but also to raise funds for film, creative, book. And that's what's so wonderful about the platform. What kind of feedback or suggestions do you have for someone looking to fund their first short film, like doing crowdfunding? Let's keep it on a crowdfunding video for that. And within a film project, the first 15 seconds, what would you focus on for a film project in those first 15 seconds?
Yeah, so with film, and this comes from the top down, they're always going to make sure you have skin in the game if you're at the beginning. And so it will have a hard time finding an investor or investors if they know that you're not putting anything into it anyways.
Mhm.
So try to make sure that you are putting something into it. Like, I've spent $50,000 on my own short film, and that wasn't an easy check to write. It took 2 years to write it. So um, it takes, if you're going to do that film, pour everything into it. That way people know that you're giving it everything. And if you do, they're going to support you. People want to see what you have to bring to market if you put everything into it. I was trying to look at the first 15 seconds, it scrolled
Yeah.
away.
Oh, yeah, I've been getting rid of I've been moving the
Oh,
cursor.
that's fine. Sorry.
So the first 15 seconds in a
Gotta
crowdfunding
grab their
video
attention.
for, I mean, I think it's applicable. It doesn't matter what the product or if it's a film or a product.
Mhm.
It's being clear about what you're offering and what the video is about and who you're speaking to and getting that story quickly across.
Yeah, yeah. And you can use camera angles that'll, if someone's scrolling, we call it scroll stopping. Literally if you use a cool like POV dive or a camera tilt, that gets people to stop scrolling, and now you've got them hooked and they're like, well, I already stopped. I may as well watch this.
That's actually interesting. I wish that we would have touched on that a bit more to use unique camera angles. But you also don't want to make people sick. So you need to be,
Sparing.
yeah.
Good at
So
the beginning.
there's an interesting question that just came up. Recommendations for video stock footage, because maybe you can shoot some of it actors in your product, but then you can have some filler content. So there's a company that I know of called artgrid.io and artlist.io. Are there any others that you know?
There's a lot. There's new ones coming out. They're trying to make AI for it, but it's not there yet. Maybe someday. Um, but I've seen like the highest level commercials, leverage stock. Um, Actually used a clip that inspired me to buy the vehicle I drive. And I didn't realize it was like available to license. So yeah, I'd be careful how much you do. It gets pretty like, oh yeah, this is all just stock.
Mhm.
Uh, but there can be ways to tell, kind of like with people with explainer videos, tell a big global story with cartoons, um, on just like we're spending per frame or per shot. So think of it that way. Yeah, we leverage AI not AI, stock. We do leverage stock. It's important.
Yeah, I think it's important when you're using um, stock, video from, ArtGrid or wherever, and you're filming your own, that the video lighting and if you have people or outdoor, that it's not too stark of a contrast. So you need to try to find footage that connects, that you don't have just like
Yeah.
so shocking.
That is one of the number one things that we see being a problem with stock is it was all shot by different cameras, different creators, different agendas, different reasons, different time of day, different moods. And so it can be really hard to make a cohesive story with not a cohesive team. It's not that they're bad shooters or whatever. A lot of them are really good at what they do, but you'd be surprised how different they are. And like we shoot on Red Raw, most stock is not available in RAW. It's most of it is MP4. It's already condensed. You can pay more for log, but even then, it just makes it more complicated.
Absolutely. No, that makes sense. And I mean, there is also fantastic stock music that you can use. And I think again, it's also important when we talk about storytelling to have music that aligns to the story you're telling and music is we didn't touch on it so much, but music is such a powerful emotional driver. And so really ensuring that you're selecting the right music as well. What's your take on that?
Yeah, so going back to audio is 50% of video. If you're not going to use live audio, we do, some of our packages include sound design,
Mhm.
and we do full, and we just had a client recently and he was like, I love, it was for like a garage, wall. organizer. We did metal clinking sound when the nails got set down. He was obsessed with it. And I did that. We made sure that that got in there on purpose because it matters. You want to hear, it's like the haptic on your phone. They're not even real buttons anymore, but you feel the haptic. It's the same thing with audio. You
Mhm.
want to be able to experience what's happening. And if you're not going to do actual real live audio, the music now holds that torch. And so
Mhm.
the music has to be really powerful.
Yep. And we've got okay, so I'm gonna answer one last question. It's actually a two-part question. It's not the last one there, it's the two last ones. So I'm gonna summarize it for you. Somebody mentioned that they are filming a physical product and they asked, 2 to 3 minutes. Again, we touched on this. It's really ideal to do that 90, I think 90 seconds is the sweet spot for a video. But their question is about filming the video in an outdoor setting versus an indoor. So for somebody that's filming outdoor, what are your, thoughts there? What's your advice?
That's a great question. Indoor can be really expensive actually, and then you have you have to control the lighting. Outdoors, if your product if it's a product that can be sold outdoors or it makes sense,
Mhm.
it can be a lot easier to shoot. You can get permits easier. You can shoot in parks. You can shoot in beaches. You can go climb off in the woods.
Mhm.
So it could be a really smart way for someone. You might have to, maybe you don't live in an ideal location. Now you got to go to California or wherever. That can cause problems, or present challenges. So just find ways that you can leverage that to your advantage. Now, if you've got a great location and it's got decent lighting,
Mhm.
and you don't have to leverage like a bunch of expensive lights,
Mhm.
or knowledge how to use them, then that might be better for you. It just depends on what the brand story is and what you're trying to tell.
So I'm going to share a personal anecdote. I was filming a crowdfunding video last year, and so we filmed it inside, and we ran into issues because the AC kept turning on and off, and the audio was picking it up, and we were shooting. We had narrators speaking on camera, and it was a big problem. Outdoors, how much of a problem can that be?
So it could both can be problems. I mean, I remember I filmed it, Intel 5 years doing engineers, and when that AC kicks on and it's like a big corporate, you can't turn it off. It's like you got to call someone across the world to get it turned off. So we always had you can block it off, you can gaff it off, turn it off if you can. But then they might sweat like crazy.
But
So
but for people outdoor who can't control the
outside outside, think about it. If you're going to invest if you're not going to invest in lights outside, which you don't need for this space, invest in good audio.
heat.
A good lav mic or in a good shotgun, they could really cut some like wild noises out. Like you'd be surprised. There is post processing you can do. You want to avoid it. You want to get it, again, don't fix that in post if you don't have to.
Mhm.
But if you're gonna rent equipment, make sure you're not renting the cheapest. Like honestly, probably don't buy a microphone, rent it.
Mm,
Um,
that's good
because
advice.
you're not gonna use it that much, are you? Like just rent it.
Mhm.
Uh, I kind of have like, oh, we gotta buy it and use it a bunch. We have to rent stuff because we only use it here and there for
Right.
specific. Other stuff we own because we use it all the time. But yeah, audio is critical.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, we went over because we had a lot of fantastic questions, which I love. And so, do you have any kind of closing remarks that you want to share? Anything, last insight? Maybe what's your, we had this wonderful webinar. I'll ask you one last question and then I'll let you give a few closing remarks. What's the number one takeaway that, Indiegogo crowdfunding campaigners should think about when going into their crowdfunding video journey?
Yeah, just make sure the video completely is your brand. If you're not getting that with the partner you're talking to, or if you feel like you're going to see this a lot in this space, people want to go do this. And so they say, oh, we'll go do it this way. We call that like creative piracy, where they're trying to use your budget to go fill their reel.
Mhm.
Um, so that's a huge problem. Look out for that. So just make sure the story is so 100% your brand that anyone who's ever heard of your product, when they see this, they like immediately feel it's completely connected.
Mhm.
Um, There's no disconnection. Like, don't do something wild. Don't, I just, hear these stories all the time of people like, oh, we wasted all this money and we did this huge thing. I'm like, that's because the producer wanted that on their reel. Like, it's obvious to me. So just make sure it literally is your product.
And that's achieved by knowing your audience, making sure that you're using their language and that you're maybe bringing a writer and not completely relying on
Yeah.
robotic tools, but having a human really look and invest into that script and everything else.
Yeah. You want engineers to design things, and then you want creatives to create
Right.
emotions. You
And
want
I'll
both.
and I'll also say, I think that before you film, give the script to somebody you don't know. Ask a friend of a friend to read the script and ask them what the takeaway is that they received and if they understood the product.
Yeah. Yeah. Give it to, I would make sure, here's one thing we see, make sure you give it to your target audience.
Yeah, well,
Uh,
a friend of a friend in the target audience. I assume that
yeah.
your friends might be.
Well, maybe, but we have experienced that with branding where, someone sent it to someone who's not their target audience and they
Mhm.
hated it.
That's a really
Uh,
good advice.
and then it kind of caused problems. We're like, whoa, who did you send it to? And oh, that's not your target audience at all. Send it to this target, and they all loved it. So make sure that goes to your target audience, or it can throw you down a rabbit trail.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. It's a good piece of advice. Anything you want to close with, and then I'll, do a few closing remarks.
Yeah, we didn't get to talk about the budget builder much, but we created it. No one else has created something this robust that we've seen, and we're just at the beginning of it. So we can send it out right now. It's not living on our website yet, but it's we're building a new website and building it into it.
Mhm.
But it's a way that you can play with. You can go back and forth through this thing 100 times. We found that it's cut out like 2 months of negotiations with people, and they could just do it on their own. But you're also going to learn what things cost. It'll
Mhm.
help you frame out, oh my gosh, this is what I need a budget for, or I think I could skip that, or I don't really want that. That's not what my audience wants anyways. So just remember, it's for all types of videos. And we're just trying to do that with all the phases of marketing we do, but it takes time. But we're really excited about it. So I'd love it if people played with it, and if they
Share their
found it,
feedback.
yeah, tell me, let me know, email me.
Great. And so, Jon, thank you again for joining. Thank you, everyone, for joining and asking all the incredible questions today. In terms of the budget builder, we will be sending a follow-up email to everyone who attended with the budget builder contact information to be in touch with Jon from storyboxCREATIVE. And we also will be sharing the recording of this webinar. So if you'd like to watch it again, you will have the opportunity to do so. Additionally, please make sure to keep a lookout for future events. We have our next one with Rain Factory on how to build a crowdfunding campaign page that converts on April 2nd, and then April 16th with Easy Ship on how to navigate the shipping maze, and we say deliver happiness to your backers. So a lot in store, and there's even more already planned in May, but let's join the next two. And that's it. So thank you, everybody.
Thank
And
you
Jon,
so much.
I'm going to stay on as well for a minute.